Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Well, good evening, everyone. And, of course, welcome back. Yes, to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. You know, it's funny. On Friday night, John asked us on OnlyLands if we thought we were really going to go to war with Iran. And I said, nah. It's just going to be like every other time we were supposed to go to war with Iran, just like Iran is only 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon. Well, imagine my surprise just a couple of hours later when President Trump announced that we weren't exactly going to war with Iran, but we were definitely shaking the boots in the closet, so to speak. I don't even know if anybody's ever said that before, but I just did. So we are going to talk about the situation in Iran, but in the first portion of the show, my good friend Andrew Paquette, also known as Art Zark on Twitter, he is an election security researcher. Primarily, he's done a lot of work in New York. We've had him here on the show to talk about that, but my other good friend, Lori on a Farm on Twitter, which is also the name for Lori Gallagher, she's discovered some stuff in Bexar County, Texas, and Andrew is going to be here to break it down with us for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to get straight into the Iranian stuff. So do me a favor, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, hit the red pill, hit the thumbs up, whatever it might be. You can also help us out tremendously by sharing the show. Yasman, it actually doesn't. I've got some Epstein stuff as well, but, you know, I figured that just went without saying. So do me a favor, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, and we're going to get into it right about now. All right, my friends, welcome back. Hope you guys are doing very, very well today. We have a lot to discuss, but first of all, I need to give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's show. That is, of course, going to be my friends over there at Brightcore. Now, you guys may or may not know that in your lifetime, 1 in 2 people will be diagnosed with cancer. And you got to ask yourself, why is that? Well, it's because in today's world, we are constantly being bombarded with polluted air, chemical-laced food, toxins, chemicals in the water. I mean, it's pretty much everywhere. It's all around us. There's really no way that you can get away from it. And when we have all of this toxins and chemicals and sludge coming into contact with our body, this is where abnormal cell changes occur, and it's why people end up getting cancer. But the solution is not another synthetic drug, because the solution actually comes from nature. So take a look at, take a look at this study right here. A recent study determined the probiotic bacteria that is found in kimchi, and they took a look at it. They highlighted the cancer preventative potential in these probiotic bacteria. It showed that strains in kimchi may help to support the body's natural defenses at the cellular level, because this is where cancer begins. Kimchi supports this process because 70 to 80% of your immune system resides in your gut microbiome. And kimchi's 900 plus probiotic strains help reinforce this immune network against toxins that are beyond your control. But it even goes beyond that, because kimchi is known to help reduce inflammation, it supports detoxification, it strengthens digestion, and it has immune boosting potential. So this is why Brightcore created Kimchi 1, so that they could give you the benefits of traditionally fermented kimchi, make it accessible to people, consistent, and just simply an easy way to make it a part of your everyday routine. So this is the best part here. Today, you guys can get 25% off your order when you go to brightcore.com/redpill. Use that code REDPILL, and you can also get to the link in the description below this video. But to get the very best deal, you've got to call Brightcore directly at 888-383-5996. Once again, that number is 888-383-5996. detox your body, rebuild your gut, and give yourself the health that you deserve by taking your health into your own hands and starting today. You can also use the QR code that you see on screen. Thank you very much to the people at Brightcore. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring my friend Andrew Paquette into the conversation. And Andrew will be with us in just a moment. I do have a couple of Rumble rants. Actually, Andrew is already here, so I will get to these Rumble rants here in just a minute. But Andrew Paquette, thank you so much for joining us, sir. How you doing? If you hadn't, it would have been totally fine, so don't worry about it. But either way, I appreciate your professionalism. So I was telling the audience in the introduction, you've been a guest on the show a number of times before. We've talked about your work in New York. Over the weekend, I saw yourself and my friend Lori Gallagher, Peter Bernegger as well, sharing some new research that is coming out of Bexar County, Texas. What can you tell us about this, and how is it comparable to what you found in New York and other places? Oh, wait, hold on, Andrew. They're saying that you are muted. Yes. And, okay, you are no longer muted, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'll give you a fast recap how this all happened, because it was kind of fast and kind of interesting on that basis. And this, I think, should help educate your listeners how incredibly difficult it is to deal with elections, because it happens so rapidly. It's almost as soon as it starts, it's over. So last Friday on the 20th, I got an urgent email. It actually said urgent all over the top of it from Professor Walter Doherty. And he said, Andrew, I think we've got an algorithm running in Bexar County. I'd like you to take a look at it. And he sent me 2 files to look at. I started looking at it. It was pretty obvious there was an algorithm running. And I was kind of wondering what I would be able to add to what Walter already knew. So I started looking at it. And by the next day, and by the way, I couldn't stop thinking about it all night long. I was tossing and turning, and I was making notes on my iPad in my bed. And then I on my computer, and it kept on going. And then he sent me another file, which turned out to be the really important file. And I was able to, over the course of the next several days, pretty much reverse engineer most of the algorithm. There's like one piece of a 15-step process I haven't solved yet, but what they've got is they have an algorithm that appears to be running in the no-ink system software at the polling stations. And what it does is it is creating phantom records in a highly organized way. So what it's doing is it's taking the real voter list. So you have real voters. They walk into the polling place to vote, and then they've got these poll pads, and the poll pads check in whether the voter has arrived or not. And once it does that, it sends an authorization to give them a ballot. This could actually be an authorization to the ballot printer, which actually causes a ballot to be printed immediately, or it may just give them permission to reach into a box in the back with pre-printed ballots and hand it over. But one way or another, that check-in list is the list of people who A, physically appeared in person, and B, were given a ballot, okay? So this is a really, really important list that Walter gave me, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, when I looked at it, I saw what they'd done is for the, I think it was the Wednesday of the election, the early election on the 18th, what they did is they took the real list of people who'd come in, which is a little over 4,800 people, and then they alphabetized it, and they took the first 735 names, duplicated them 5 or 6 times based on an algorithmic logic that they applied, and then they modified their addresses by incrementing them, again, based on algorithmic logic. So for instance, if the real person was at 1 Main Street, it'd be 2 Main Street, 3 Main Street, 4, et cetera.
Okay.
And in this way, they generated over 4,000 fake registrations. And they gave them fractional ID numbers, which were in themselves illegal, okay? The whole thing is blatantly illegal, okay? But the saving grace for the people who did it is that this blatancy would not normally be noticed because it got erased within, I would say, hours of them using it, okay? I don't know for sure. I just know it was erased by the time the candidate or one of the candidates in the election sent me a copy of a later version of the file where all of the original names were restored. But for a time, there were 4,110 utterly fake registrations sitting there on the devices. And what that meant is ballots were issued for those names, okay? And they were all fake. So how this relates to New York. So I discovered an algorithm in New York's voter rolls something like 3 or 4 years ago now. It was April of 2022. And as far as I know, I'm the first person to have ever discovered such an algorithm. And what it was is it was something that allowed someone to tag the records with a unique mathematical identifier that no one else would be aware of. It became the equivalent of a third ID number. And this might not seem particularly useful to listeners who aren't aware of how these kinds of things work, but ID numbers are about the most valuable thing you can have in information systems, okay? And this is why they are very heavily protected in most industries. In voter rolls, it's a little different because in voter rolls, they're supposed to be public under law, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can't do anything to that. And if they want to do anything secretive with the ID numbers, they have to do it in a way that doesn't violate legal requirements for how those things are constructed. So they actually have done some really clever things in not only in New York, but in multiple states that I've researched now to create ways to hide information in the ID numbers themselves. And this, as I understand it from the lawyers I've spoken with, is a violation of federal law because it makes a part of the system opaque, and that violates the transparency requirements of federal law. Now, as far as the seriousness of what I found in Bexar County, Texas, my feeling is this is easily the worst thing I've seen in all my 5 years of researching this stuff. It is, as far as I'm concerned, the most actionable, the most immediately actionable. I wouldn't be surprised if the election got stopped because the thing is, at this point, I don't think you can legally certify that election.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they might try, they might actually do it despite the fact that it doesn't meet the legal requirement for certification. But they've destroyed the chain of custody by creating those 4,110 fake IDs. As soon as that happens, and then they revert back to some other list, that chain of custody is broken. It wouldn't even matter if that new list is correct because we don't know what happened with the earlier one, and we don't know what happened to those ballots. And because they're designed to be completely anonymous, there is no way to trace the ballots back to the fake registrations, okay?
Sure.
And those fake registrations on that particular list mean ballots were created. And if someone wants to say, no, in that case, ballots weren't created, they'd have to prove that because the list says they were. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yep.
So do we have any idea what happened with those ballots? I mean, has there been any sort of a response? Have they tried to explain this away in any way?
You know, I saw a glimpse of an X post today where they essentially tried to wave it away as nothing. But it was, I think it was the San Antonio Sun had written an article about this. They'd reached out to No Ink for comment, and they didn't give a comment, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the most important part of the article because the rest of it didn't really engage with the evidence at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the evidence in this is absolutely devastating. That one file is basically self-authenticating. You don't need to look anywhere outside of this file, which was downloaded by one of the people at the with the GOP county organization in Bexar County from the county database, right? So this file has all the proof you need to show that fraud happened, okay?
Yeah.
As far as the ballots, that file tells us the ballots were created. As far as the paper ballots, where would they be located? I've got no idea. This is one of those things where we need like an FBI raid or something to go in there and grab everything. But frankly, I think that the more parsimonious solution is just to cancel the election and throw everything out and start over.
Sure.
Because trying to extract the bad ballots, my opinion, would be an impossible task. Even if they're there and even if they seize them, they're going to be mixed in with a whole bunch of other ballots. And since they're literally genuine, they're fraudulently generated, but the ballots themselves are on, genuine ballot printing materials and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think they'd be able to extract those very easily. And I don't think you'd want to.
So how about getting to the point where we could have some action? I mean, has this been reported to Ken Paxton or anyone else within the state government that would perhaps otherwise have an interest in making sure that an election isn't stolen?
I don't want to say too much out of school here, but
okay.
Let me just say Paxton's office is aware, and let's say offices much higher than his are aware. Let's just say certain reports of mine have been on airplanes traveling to some pretty important people. Okay, so
thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. the thing
it's
is,
a long
is that,
time
yeah.
coming, Andrew. I think all of us are anxious about this.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I keep hearing from people who would know these things, that this report of mine or that report has been seen by so and so, and these are all big names that you'd recognize, but they're not all saying spread it around to the press either. So
Right.
so I'm not doing that, but I do know for sure that that the administration's taking this stuff very seriously.
Good.
They do not intend to let this drop. And it's frustrating for me, as well as I'm sure you and everybody else, as we wait for something to actually happen. But, I'm going to use Iran as an example. I had a dream that we were going to attack Iran like a month and a half or something ago, right? And I was thinking, boy, that would be something that makes a lot of sense given the circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. And I started to lose faith, and I started to worry that it wasn't going to happen. But I was thinking, no, I'm going to just trust Trump, because our president's a terrific guy, and there's no way he's going to put himself out on a limb there and say he's going to do something and not follow through. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy who puts the portrait of himself after getting shot right outside of his office, where every Democrat has to look at that, and every rhino, right? So he's not going to drop the ball on this. And then he did attack Iran. But the thing is, he had to wait until he was ready. And now that he's ready, he's going to do the job right. So I'm kind of thinking that's what's going on with all the election stuff that we're talking about.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, obviously, timing is everything on this. I think they've tried to go through Congress. It seems pretty obvious that the Senate is not willing to act, or they're unable to because of Mitch McConnell's committee or whatever reason beyond that. But I'm sure that you've heard that there is this rumor of a 17-page executive order that's floating around the White House right now, which might remedy all of these things that many people are worried about. Have you personally heard anything about that?
Yes.
That's good enough for me, Andrew. That's good enough for me. I'm All right. Well, will you promise to keep in touch with us if anything else should arise regarding this specific instance, or any of your other work? I would love to have you back to speak on this in greater in depth in the future.
Well, that'd be great. And by the way, I'll just tell you one thing as a heads up. My 7th peer-reviewed article on this particular type of subject is coming out, I would think, in about a month from now. It's all approved, it's edited and everything, it's ready to go. And in my opinion, it's the most important paper I've written, because it deals with multiple states and the overall solution. The Texas thing, in my opinion, is an emergency that needs to be handled right now.
Of course.
But the overall paper, I think, is more of a solution for the nation. And so when that comes out, I'll contact you. How's that sound?
That's perfect. That's perfect. You got my phone number. Just let me know. Andrew, thank you so much for stopping by on such short notice, and thank you for your work. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Right. We'll talk to you soon. All right, you guys, hopefully you are as excited as I am. Andrew is incomparable in terms of the work that he does. I mean, he's obviously on the same level as my other friend, Ed Solomon. I really, truly agree with what Andrew said there. I believe that President Trump and the administration have got this. I do not think they are simply just going to allow it to happen when it comes to these midterms. I also don't think that we can rely on the Senate and the rest of Congress when it comes to the SAVE Act, because this is about a lot more than simply voter ID. All right, before we dive into the rest of today's news, I have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. My friends, they can cancel your accounts. You know that big banks do not have your back. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, what you're allowed to say, who you're allowed to support, because big banks and financial institutions have got total control over your money, and they use it. This is why financial independence matters right now more than ever. So, introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom, because with the Rumble Wallet, you control your own money, not a bank, not a government, not even a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and importantly, Bitcoin, all in one secure place. There's no permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support creators like myself or others that you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip the content creators. It's secure, it's instant, there's no interference, and there's no middlemen to take a cut. It isn't a credit line that they can shut off on you. It's your wallet, it's permanent to protect for the future. future, to protect for your family, because when the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. So Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's important to mention it's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download the Rumble Wallet now. Step away from the big banks for good and get true ownership, true protection, and true financial freedom. If you're over there on Rumble or you see that QR code on screen, you can just use that or head on over to wallet.rumble.com or go to the App Store on your phone and download it right there. Okay, now let me address a couple of these Rumble rants, and then that will parlay us into the stories we have for today. Doc from Amish PA over on Rumble says, any chance the war narrative in Iran creates a narrative mandate for the Ben Gurion Canal construction project started with the demolition of Gaza? I'm going to say no, because the Ben Gurion Canal would explicitly drive a direct wedge through whatever's left of Gaza, and President Trump has given no indication that he supports the idea of the Ben Gurion Canal. There would be a lot of territory that would be eaten up, and it would directly cut into his plans for the renewed Gaza and all of the economic development that's going on there. Remember that the partnership that President Trump made with all of the partner nations in the region, it's not simply with Israel. This will be a massive project, and it will be permanent, and there won't be anything that Israel can do to get rid of it. This is not going to bring about the Ben Gurion Canal. It's not going to hasten the Greater Israel Project or anything like that. So thank you. That was a really great question. C. Morgan Hall says, I'm hoping you can shed some reasonable light on Iran, as I always do. Thank you so much, C. Morgan Hall. I will definitely be bringing you my reasonable take. And AKA Lou9 says, look forward to every show, Zach. Thank you for all you do. Well, thank you so much, Lou. It's always a pleasure to see you here. Before we get into Iran, because we have a lot on Iran and I wanted to break it up, but I don't know if you guys saw what happened between Nancy Mace and Representative Ilhan Omar this weekend, but they got into a bit of a cat fight on X. And if I had to choose a winner, I would totally say that Nancy Mace was the one who came out on top. She was literally perched atop Ilhan Omar, tearing her headdress off, whatever it might be. And this all happened in the midst of the strikes on Iran, and it led to some interesting pieces of entertainment. So, first of all, here is Nancy Mace. After this heated exchange, Nancy Mace went on Newsmax. I guess Ed Henry is over at Newsmax. And she spoke about Ilhan Omar's frustration with the attack on Iran. I guess she was pissed because it happened during Ramadan. And let's go ahead and listen. And actually, you know what? I know that I'm going to have to get past this commercial. So give me 2 seconds to get past this commercial. Okay, so the attack on Iran begins. Ilhan Omar goes on X, and she's upset. And Nancy Mace seems like she likes to poke the bear. So that's exactly what she did.
Donald Trump, the great liberator of women around the world. You're making a very important point. And here's a woman in Congress you serve with, Ilhan Omar, responding to you on X, saying, I hope you aren't drunk, and took your staff's advice. Rashida and I, Tlaib, of course, don't know this man and feel confident he didn't care about us. Please refrain from drinking too much. As you've been warned from your staff, stay off social media. I don't know what she's talking about, but I pray in this holy month you find peace and respect for yourself. I think she had lashed out at the idea that the president moved forward with this because, as I understand it, there was intelligence saying there was a target of opportunity to take out the Ayatollah and other leaders. She's complaining that the attack came during Ramadan.
I think Ed Henry might have gotten some work done. He's looking a little fresh-faced.
And Rashida Tlaib, by the way, is attacking both the United States and Israel, another member of the squad, and saying they shouldn't have done this, as if the U.S. is a foreign country to her. Could you unpack some of that?
Well, I don't give a damn if it's Ramadan. I don't care if Muslims are fasting right now. This was the right time with the right intel, the right president to go in there and do this, and he'll have his chance to explain it, or his secretaries to Congress. And she was also responding because I was complaining about that. Where was she when Jews were slaughtered? Over 1,000 Jews were slaughtered in Israel by Hamas, by Palestinians on a Jewish holiday. I don't remember her complaining about that. And when she said that very defamatory statement about me in the middle of the night, by the way, what was she doing in the middle of the night? But I asked her what it was like to be married to your brother. I mean,
that was it right there. What's it like to be married to your brother? So right here, she had posted, "My heart goes out to Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib tonight, sending them thoughts and prayers," along with the picture of the Ayatollah, because he was allegedly killed. I mean, it's actually being confirmed now, but he was killed along with a whole host of Iranian leadership over the weekend. And she responded with, "So tell me, what was it like being married to your brother?" And that shut the conversation down. Ilhan Omar did not reply to that. I was really hoping that she would, because, of course, I think just about every single person here in the audience has been waiting for Ilhan Omar to reply to that question. I mean, why did you marry your brother, Ilhan Omar? You know that's illegal. She was already married to another man, living with him with a bunch of kids. All right, now, we also do need to show this clip. This is from the Epstein deposition of Bill and Hillary Clinton. It only was just released about an hour ago, so the clips are just starting to come out. But this is Hillary Clinton being asked about Pizzagate, and I believe that it is Lauren Boebert that is doing the questioning. Hillary Clinton's face says everything.
2017 speeches and interviews, you described Pizzagate as a baseless conspiracy theory, alleging you and others ran a child sex trafficking ring from a Washington pizzeria basement. Have you reviewed any 2025-2026 Epstein files that were released that you believe reference or relate to those specific 2016 claims regarding the Podesta emails, Comet Ping Pong Pizza used as code, possibly?
Her face and her lips. She's just basically trying to stop from jumping across the table and clawing Lauren Boebert's eyes out. She is so angry, and it's interesting because, as you know, Hillary Clinton can only keep the mask up for so long. And I guess during this questioning, we know that she did end up freaking out about one or two things. I was hoping to get that clip before we went live, but I didn't. But this is as good as anything.
I'm sorry,
You're asking her about whether she's reviewed emails in the Epstein files, which relate to the wacky Pizzagate scam.
You could characterize it however you want. I just would like to know if she's familiar with any of them.
So
She's
excuse me,
commenting.
your question is about whether or not she has reviewed any emails in the Epstein release files about Pizzagate.
Correct.
Pizzagate was totally made up. It was an outrageous allegation that ended up hurting a number of people, that caused a deranged young man to show up with his assault rifle and shoot up a local pizzeria. I can't believe you're even referencing it. You should be.
There are connections to the language.
Well,
I'm
the
not talking
QAnon
about,
people believe there are. So
I don't know what
have
QAnon
at
people
it.
believe.
Have at it.
But you've accused certain parties, and I think even right now today, of promoting slow walking or information in ways that fuels conspiracies. In your view, did any Epstein-Maxwell related investigations or file handling pre or post 2019 contribute to or intersect with the spread of Pizzagate style theories about Democrat figures?
Objection.
I have no way of answering. That is the most
speculation.
ridiculously.
Have you or your representatives identified any Epstein file content that has been misinterpreted online to revive those claims? And what steps, if any, have you taken to clarify?
Again, object on the ground of.
I think that this is all very
Speculation.
reasonable.
Well, first of all, I don't follow the crazy conspiracy stories that are online. I regret that anybody does. I find it quite sad, but also disturbing that people would believe some of what is put forth, like Pizzagate. So I have taken no steps to review anything
Do you think
that might
pizza-
have any connection to something which I think is totally bogus.
Yes, yes. Totally bogus, Hillary. Nothing to see here. Well, maybe something to see here. Yet another individual who was recently exposed for being in the Epstein files has mysteriously been found dead in Moscow. This time a Russian billionaire, former Russian Senator Umar Zabalarov. I don't know how to pronounce his name. We've got pictures of him here with Ghislaine Maxwell in the files. It's been reported that he committed suicide. Now, man, that just sounds weird to me every time people whose lives are set for the rest of them. This guy has billions upon billions of dollars, and he decides to off himself in Moscow. I don't know. He once called Ghislaine Maxwell his soulmate, which you can actually see. Here's an email. G-Max emailing him in 2001. Umar, sorry we did not come last week. Got sidetracked and ended up in France. However, we, Jeffrey, Tom, and I are going to arrive next Friday. Will you be around? Can we get together? Let me know. Hope you are well. He says, Dear Ghislaine, I am back from London, planning to be in Moscow. Really want to see you, but I need to know exactly when you arrive, because I want to take care of you and arrange welcoming things. Wishing you all the best, Umar. And, of course, there is Jeffrey and Ghislaine. But, yes, another tragic individual from the Epstein files found dead. Very interesting. We've also gotten some new information about the 2019 investigation in New Mexico. The former New Mexico Attorney General Hector Balderas has revealed that back in 2019, federal prosecutors are the ones who contacted his office and asked him to stop investigating the sex trafficking at Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch in 2019. Now, the reason they asked him to stop is because they were allegedly going to pick this up. They promised that if you allow us to take over the investigation, we will share everything with you that we learn. And that way, the state of New Mexico can also join the Southern District of New York in prosecuting anyone who is involved in sex trafficking out of the state of New Mexico. Surprise, surprise, the SDNY never followed up. They never handed anything over. The former AG, Hector Balderas, said cooperation was a one-way relationship. You see, New Mexico had already done a ton of work. They handed over thousands of pages of documents, police reports, witness interviews, investigative records, all put into the hands of the Southern District of New York. Guess who was the one who is running this thing in Southern District of New York in 2019? It was none other than James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey. In return, the SDNY gave them absolutely nothing. Now, at the time, Balderas urged the feds to seize Zorro Ranch. In 2020, he said, you need to get in there to preserve this criminal evidence. There are files, video recordings, tons of stuff that we know is inside there. They did and said nothing. And guess what? It should probably surprise no one that the ton of investigative materials that the state of New Mexico handed over to the SDNY is suspiciously missing from the millions of pages of documents that was recently revealed to us by the FBI, by the DOJ last month. The investigation quite literally was gutted by the SDNY just weeks before Jeffrey Epstein mysteriously died, was suicided, or was removed from the story in custody of the federal government. So the now New Mexico AG Raul Torres is reopening the exact same probe that they began back in 2019. And as I've reported in the past, they also have this truth-finding commission that they are starting as well. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, what are we going to get, another strongly worded letter? Well, this truth-finding commission is going to be impaneled with subpoena power, which means that they will have real investigative chops behind it. And it appears to be run by the Attorney General's office. Now, you also should probably know that Bill Richardson, the former governor of New Mexico, was a close confidant of Jeffrey Epstein. If I had to guess, I would say that his political power in the state is likely one of the reasons why the investigation went nowhere. The people who were looking into it back in 2019 had no direct connection to Bill Richardson, but certainly the feds back in New York definitely did. That is who I think would be protected. But the only thing that I can gather from this story is that the Southern District of New York either destroyed every piece of evidence related to Zorro Ranch, or maybe, hopefully, it is still hidden away somewhere in a brand new bottomless broom closet there at the Southern District of New York. Maybe we'll hear about it in the near future, but right now it would appear that there was a massive cover-up, which should probably surprise no one. All right, now, I would also unfortunately like to report to you that over the weekend, yet another transgender activist was arrested for threatening to kill President Trump. The threats that this 20-year-old by the name of Philip Wharton leveled against the president are highly disturbing. He's a biological male who goes by the name Sadie Online, and he was indicted last Wednesday on 2 counts of threatening a federal official. Last summer, Secret Service was alerted to these online threats that Wharton was making in social media posts. In one of those posts, he said that he was going to murder President Trump and wear his face as a mask. And then in another post, he also threatened to assassinate President Trump. So federal officials did a bit of investigating. They found his Instagram and X accounts, and they took him into custody in Everett, Washington. The indictment was filed out of the U.S. District Court in Seattle, and according to the indictment, the first alleged threat was posted August 19th, 2025 on the social media account where he said, "What the guy in the White House sees after I kill the U.S. President of the United States of America and wear his face as a mask." And then the second count stems from a post on September 23rd, 2025. In that one, Philip wrote, "My name is Sadie Online. I am going to kill the president tomorrow. This is not a joke, just a confession admissible in a court of law." Well, that was a bad move, Philip, because now you're probably going to end up in prison, but at least he's off the streets. All right, now, remember last week, President Trump made mention of the fact that he wanted the Department of War, the Pentagon, to release everything they had on UAPs, UFOs, unexplained things in the sky, whatever they know about aliens, all of that. A lot of people are very interested to know what the government might say or what information may come out, as this is a very different seeming administration than administrations past. Other people could care less. Other people believe they already know exactly what it is. Either way, I am definitely interested, but this puts a new wrinkle on that story. Retired Major General Neil McCasland, who has very, very long been associated with these covert UFO programs inside the Pentagon, over the weekend was reported missing. Now, McCasland was responsible for managing the Air Force's $2.2 billion science and technology program at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And he was also mentioned in a 2016 WikiLeaks email release as an advisor to Tom DeLonge regarding how to move forward with UFO disclosure. So this guy, who would likely have something to do with the release of this information, has now gone missing. Let's take a look at this breakdown from Red Panda Koala on X.
Major General Neil McCasland, who is the former head of the Foreign Technology Back Engineering Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is whom I suspect was the general that Tom met with at an airport and who collected Tom his advisors. Major General McCasland is responsible for managing the Air Force's $2.2 billion science and technology program. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the base where General McCasland oversaw, has a long history with the UFO phenomena, being the place that the infamous Project Blue Book was based out of, and where all of the Project Blue Book files are located. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is also the place where the Army officially reported they took the crashed UFO wreckage from Roswell, New Mexico, before redacting their story and claiming it was a new weather balloon.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
This leaked information provided much credibility to Tom's claims of working with government insiders towards UFO disclosure. These are not random government employees, but some of the highest-ranking government officials who of all people would have knowledge of UFOs. I recommend everyone reads these emails themselves. They can be found at Wiki.
And John Podesta is who Tom DeLonge was talking with. Another aspect of this release that President Trump has ordered is that this was a very important issue to John Podesta. John Podesta had long been pushing President Bill Clinton and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and then candidate Hillary Clinton that if she was to be elected, she should be the one to give disclosure to the American people and to the world. And so for President Trump to scoop that out from underneath John Podesta and these people, I have to think that it's a bit of a slap in the face. The fact that this general is now, or not general, what was he? He was, hold on. Major General, retired Major General. The fact that he has now gone missing, I have to believe that this is directly connected to the order that President Trump gave, because this man would have a lot of information. So at the very least, please keep him in your prayers, because if he's gone, I think that someone may have taken him and killed him. Hey, Zach, in my opinion, Tom DeLonge and his stars to the Academy are total BS, CI operatives guiding it. I do not disagree with you. Yeah, Tom DeLonge is just a musician as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I do think that the reason he was talking to John Podesta is because they were going to do some type of limited hangout, alien reveal, whatever it might be. And yeah, I don't take it too seriously, but I do think that this guy, Major General Neil McCasland, is important in terms of this story. Q Patriot Angel over on Rumble also says, things are looking good, my friends. This will definitely be a march in which it comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. Congratulations to all who held the line. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. All right. Now, you know, it wouldn't be a Red Pill News episode if we didn't talk about some of the incredible ways that creative people try to defraud citizens of the United States. But lately, we've been seeing a lot of fraud that's actually been perpetrated against illegal aliens. The FBI has just arrested a man by the name of Mario Cesar dos Santos Jr. Now, he himself is an illegal alien, but he was running a fraudulent operation where he was producing fake federal agent IDs and then giving them to illegals along with custom-made uniforms. And he was telling them that, hey, if you pose as a federal agent, you are going to be immune from deportation. Now, undoubtedly, he made a lot of money. But because he probably also knows what his client base was, it means that we're going to have an opportunity to scoop up a lot of people who might be currently hiding here in the United States.
Pretending to be with Homeland Security to avoid deportation? Authorities have arrested a so-called chaplain who they say was selling counterfeit badges and shirts with the Department of Homeland Security logo. This promotional video appears on the Instagram page for the Chaplain Emergency Management Agency, or CEMA. The organization reportedly trains citizens to become chaplains so they can provide religious support during emergencies. CEMA's website claims it's an agency of the United States of America, but federal investigators say that's simply not true. According to authorities, the chaplain organization is illegally using the official seal of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. This Instagram video shows Mario Cesar dos Santos, who's now under arrest and facing deportation. Federal prosecutors say Dos Santos held chaplain training seminars like this one throughout Central Florida, predominantly for Brazilian immigrants and foreign nationals. After paying $400 to $450 for the chaplaincy certification, investigators say attendees were given these official-looking ID cards with DHS.
That's pretty sophisticated. Look, they've got the holograms on them. They've got the QR code. They've got the various websites that I'm sure this guy set up himself. They've even got an RFID chip like you see on credit cards and debit cards. Very sophisticated. This guy knew what he was doing, and sounds like he was doing this for quite some time.
And FEMA logos. Attendees could also
You can also purchase a badge.
Gold badges, polo shirts, and bumper stickers with counterfeit seals.
This guy was diversified, man. Yes, he is in deep shit. He's definitely going to be in deep shit.
This Instagram video shows the merchandise table at an Orlando training seminar. Dos Santos allegedly told attendees the merch would give them immunity from immigration enforcement and keep them safe from deportation. A SEMA volunteer reportedly told an undercover investigator her SEMA badge helped her get through an airport security with no issues, and that having her SEMA shirt inside her suitcase made a difference when airport security scanned her luggage with an X-ray.
Wow.
Investigators say Dos Santos has previously lied about being a Harvard graduate with a medical degree. He's currently being held in federal custody. Dos Santos was in the United States on a visa, according to the feds, but that visa has expired. There's no indication any of his chaplain trainees will face criminal charges.
Oh, man, if they're here illegally, then we still need to kick them the hell out. All right. Next, we also have some news coming out of the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. Earlier today, President Trump's administration got a rejection. He had requested a delay on the ruling from the Supreme Court on tariffs. So, of course, the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, struck down President Trump's use of IEEPA. The Supreme Court has said that IEEPA does not give President Trump the authority to impose tariffs. He can do pretty much damn near everything else that he wants to. But in terms of IEEPA, you can't call it a tariff. So the administration had asked for a 90-day delay, but the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals has denied that request. Now, this is not going to change anything. We are still moving ahead, but of course, we have that new lawsuit from FedEx. They are seeking a refund. I don't think that they're going to get a penny back. President Trump is likely going to go to them and say, you know, hey, do we have any contracts between FedEx and the federal government? How about we just cancel all of those contracts? How about we deep six your company if you want to bet against the American people? If I had to guess, I think that's probably what's going to happen. Let me say thank you to JEP863. Zach, the tunnels under the connecting to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio has a long history with alien tech, stealth tech, and other covert things. The 9 Center in Cleveland made tanks and covert projects over the years. Yes, that is very cool. And as it was said in that video, the major general that is now missing used to be in charge of the the reversal of the tech. Back engineering, tech reversal, so that they could see how it worked and then implement it in different ways. All right. Now, moving on, we're going to talk now about the attack on Iran. So as I said, on Friday night, usually, I think it was about 2:30 in the morning, I got up to use the restroom or let the dogs outside. I can't remember which, but I looked at my phone and I was like, oh shit, Lisa, it looks like we have actually attacked Iran. I would like to first begin by saying that there are definitely people out there in the America First movement who do not agree with President Trump's decision to attack Iran. Many of them have said that there is no indication that Iran was an imminent threat to the United States. They're over there in the Middle East. We're over here in North America. Many people would like to say that President Trump's efforts to curtail the development of weapons in Iran has more to do with Israel or other regional partners than it does with the United States. However, there has been an announcement from the administration that that's actually not true. We're going to hear from Marco Rubio on that in a minute. But another another argument that I've heard quite a few times is that this is regime change along the lines of what George W. Bush did in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I balk at that idea. This has been a very different conflict from the very beginning. First of all, we are not using ground troops. We are not actually moving into Iran. There was a major decapitation strike which took out everyone in the Iranian leadership of consequence as soon as it started. And there is also a series of regional players that have also gotten involved directly. In addition to that, after we struck Iran, of course, Israel wants to be involved. There were attacks on 14 different partner nations by Iran, which basically left them with nobody that could potentially get behind them and say that the United States shouldn't be doing this. So from the very start, it would appear that the United States has got the backing of virtually every single nation on planet Earth. That also shouldn't be surprising to you, given the fact that President Trump has spent a good portion of the last 14 months setting up economic deals with as many countries as will come to the table. He's also created the Board of Peace. He's also given Iran a lot of opportunities to come to the table and to make a deal themselves. And thus far, they have chosen not to. Now, the really interesting aspect of this is that last week there were continuing negotiations between Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and the Iranian foreign minister. Those ended on Friday, and they were scheduled to pick up again today. And as far as I know, they did pick up again today. Considering that this decapitation strike took out 48 Iranian leaders in a single shot over the weekend, one of those leaders who wasn't taken out was the Iranian foreign minister, who was meeting with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. That sounds to me like the administration was looking to create a point of leverage, because if they weren't willing to make a deal before, I bet you that foreign minister was going to have a little bit more of an emphasis to come to the table and do something to ensure that he would not end up like these 48 other individuals. But there are a whole bunch of other things that have happened that really, from my perspective, show us that every single war that the United States has either started or been involved in over the last 40 years could have been fought very, very differently, with a change in strategy, with a change of goals and desires. And it indicates to me that every single war was not about the stated reasons, but was instead about the business of war. It was about creating a pipeline for munitions and missiles, bodies to come in, get slaughtered, and then take them out. The attacks that we've seen in Iraq, Afghanistan in the past, in other nations, they've been relatively indiscriminate. This was very surgical in the same way that we've seen other strikes by this administration be extremely surgical, minimal collateral damage. President Trump also went in his initial announcement and spoke directly to the IRGC, which is the Republican Guard of the the Islamic Republic of Iran. And he said, we don't even want to kill you. We're asking you to lay down your weapons and surrender, and we will give you immunity. He also said that we weren't installing anybody as leader. He said, we want the Iranian people to come in and take control of their government. That is also very different from anything that we've seen in the past. If this was like a George W. Bush regime change situation, then the United States government would have killed everybody in charge in Iran, and they would have immediately said, we now are going to recognize, say, the son of the Shah. I can't remember his name. It's like Rezvani or something like that. We're going to recognize him as the new leader of Iran. That hasn't happened. The United States hasn't mentioned anything about him. In the same way that we didn't say that Maria Corina Machado was now the recognized leader of the country of Venezuela. President Trump made a deal with the people who were sticking around in Venezuela, and they capitulated, and they've gone on to continue to survive. And they've done what the United States has wanted them to do in order to keep us safe, and also in order to economically benefit their own people. I am, at the end of the day, anti-war, anti-interventionist. However, if it becomes necessary to use force to ensure the safety, security, and sovereignty of our country, I can't argue against that. And at the end of the day, I do not have the same intelligence. None of us have the same intelligence as the people inside the administration. I do not think that President Trump is controlled by anyone other than himself. And I also think that Iran has for many, many years been a CIA Mossad proxy to spread chaos in the region. If you go back to the first time that we changed the regime in Iran, the CIA overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh because he had nationalized gas and oil production. We didn't like that because the United States and the UK were essentially pilfering all of the money that was coming out of Iran because primarily the UK, pilfering the money because they were controlling the oil industry. Wasn't exactly a fair deal for the people of Iran. And so we overthrew Mossadegh. We installed the Shah, and the Shah was basically a dictator for many years. Now, the Shah lasted basically until he went and did an interview with 60 Minutes and said that there was a problem with Israel in the region. All of a sudden, the Shah was persona non grata, and he was overthrown. The United States did not support him any longer, and the mullahs took over, and the Islamic Republic of Iran was born. Of course, you guys know what happened in 1979. They took over the U.S. Embassy. They held Americans hostage. And it was only because of the Iran-Contra affair that the Reagan administration, essentially with the planning of George H.W. Bush as the former director of the CIA, and then the vice president of the United States, that we were able to negotiate the release of those people. But it required money and weapons to be handed over to the Islamic Republic of Iran, essentially securing their dominance for the next 47 years. The brutal and evil regime, as you know, many people characterize it, of Iran as it's existed for the last 47 years wouldn't have been possible without the intervention of the Central Intelligence Agency. I've also reported to you on a number of occasions in the past that the Mossad had infiltrated the Iranian government from stem to stern, and I have no reason to think that the Israeli government wouldn't be totally fine with Iran being as radical and out of control as they could make them. And they could easily do that with inside men who would be pushing Iran to do the most radical and illogical things in terms of safety and security. Like perhaps not being willing to make a deal with the United States in order to keep their country and stay alive. This attack, which took out all of these Iranian leaders, could very easily have been a clean out of all of the deep state infiltrators made up of not only CIA assets and Mossad implants, so that the Iranian people could take over and actually run their own country, just as much as it could have been a attack to remove people who were radical Islamists and who were never going to want to make a deal with the United States. We don't know. We don't know anything about these people other than what we're being told. So let's go ahead and take a look at this article right here, because President Trump discusses the 48 Iranian leaders who were wiped out in that one shot. By the way, this is Operation Epic Fury, if you haven't figured that out yet. So this included the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who took over from Ayatollah Khomeini. He was the one who was in charge during the Iran-Contra affair and the hostages at the U.S. Embassy. And there were 47 other top Iranian leaders. This was essentially everybody that the United States had theorized might take over if the Ayatollah was assassinated. President Trump announced it pretty early on Saturday morning, put out a post on Truth Social, and he said the heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world. And he also went on to say to reporters on Saturday, we're going to go long and take over that he could go long and take over the whole thing, or he could end it in 2 to 3 days and tell the Iranians, see you again in a few years if you start rebuilding your nuclear and missile programs. Of course, this entire time, the Israelis have been making strikes on Iranian targets. I can't comment on how surgical or precise those are. Again, it is in Israel's best interest to have an adversary in the region, just like I think it was in the best interests of the deep state through the CIA to also have an enemy in the region. Iran was a destabilizing force, and many of the other, all that I know of the Muslim nations in the region, with perhaps the exception being Yemen and the Houthis, everybody else had a problem with how Iran ran their stuff, and they've also largely all gotten involved in this in this war or attack, however you want to characterize it. So let's go ahead and take a listen to President Trump discussing the surgical strike. And actually, I got to get past this commercial. Let me see. So, okay, Cyrus, yes. Hold on just a second. Okay, so Cyrus says there have been multiple strikes by Iran on American assets as well as murders, and according to the FBI, direct threats of violence against Iranians living in the USA and politicians. Yes, you're absolutely correct. Over the last 47 years, there have been a number of attacks, both, like abroad on military targets that have been attributed to Iran. There have been a number of verified funding of terrorist groups by Iran. The $12 billion that Obama gave Iran, at the tail end of his administration, that obviously went to fund terrorist operations and attacks on Americans. So there's all kinds of good reasons, from my perspective, to ensure that Iran doesn't continue to do that. And regardless of who's actually making the decisions, there were a lot of fingers in that pie, and an armed and dangerous Iran ensures that there is always a boogeyman. There is always somebody to fight. And if you take a look at President Trump's plan, the creation of the Board of Peace, and in bringing in the Golden Age, his goal is to get everybody on the same page so that nobody wants to go to war with anybody else in the future, so that we can all depend on each other in an economic sense, benefit, and strengthen the sovereignty of our individual nations. Here is President Trump commenting. Okay, now, tragically, initially it was reported that no American lives have been lost in the initial salvos of the attacks. It's now being confirmed that at least 6 Americans have been killed in an Iranian counterattack after the initial attacks began. But here, just a few minutes before we went live, Marco Rubio was on Capitol Hill, and he was explaining to Congress and to reporters the rationale of the administration, why it was necessary to do this right now. The idea of a nuclear weapon, they're no longer saying Iran is 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon because we took out those uranium enrichment facilities. However, it sounds like they had moved to other sites and they were still doing research and development. But there are other things at play. Undoubtedly, the presence of all of those leaders in one building at the exact same time necessitated a quick solution to decide whether or not we're going to push this button and take them all out, or are we going to wait until another day and make it much, much harder. And I think that they saw an opportunity and they went ahead and took it. But there are 3 key points in regards to Operation Epic Fury that Marco Rubio wanted to make. Number one, the United States is seeking to eliminate the capabilities that the current Iranian government, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has to pose a threat to American interests, American naval interests, and the United States of America. And that if they didn't respond, then Iran was imminently planning to attack American targets. And then finally, he says that in order to ensure the lowest possible number of casualties, we had to go about it this way. This is also very different from anything we've seen before. The amount of care that was given to American lives was minimal in past conflicts. And the amount of care that was given to ensuring the least number of casualties for civilians in the nations that we're having problems with, that also wasn't much of consideration before. But President Trump and this administration has got that all worked into exactly how they're doing this. Let's take a listen to Marco. Oh, hold on. I have to unmute.
The United States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible.
Let me also add this in. A lot of people, even congressmen, have suggested that President Trump broke the law by not allowing Congress to declare war before he attacked Iran. So the War Resolution Powers Act of 1973, it dictates conflicts in a very specific set of terms. First of all, the president has the power to protect and defend the United States in whatever way he sees fit. If he is going to attack a foreign target, he must notify Congress within 48 hours of that happening. And the administration actually did that. They notified the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is like the 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans on the Security Committee. So they went ahead and notified them, and that was all that was required. And if the war continues, then there must be a report prepared and given to Congress, and that gives the administration 60 to 90 days to wage war in whatever way they see fit to protect American interests. And only if it extends beyond that 90-day period must it then become necessary for Congress to actually declare war. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always been done that way. Pretty sure George W. Bush didn't bother with all that. He's not somebody that I'm saying we should look up to, but from everything I'm seeing, it doesn't sound like the administration is looking to get dragged into another multi-year war. And I think that the way we've seen them carry themselves thus far, it indicates that we're not going to. This is not going to drag on and on.
Possible, perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's 2 reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all...
Okay, so that is very important right there. Israel was already planning to attack Iran whether we participated or not, which would have inevitably led to Iranian attacks on American targets, even if we didn't send a single bomb into the country. President Trump has shown us time and time again that peace can only exist through strength. The plan of the administration is to have the greatest military on planet Earth so that it can be used to protect the people of the United States, which means that at times it will become necessary to demonstrate a show of force to ensure that people do not kill Americans. It is unfortunate, but this is the way that it is. Look back at the previous attack on Iran when Israel was going to attack Iran indiscriminately. And the United States said, hold off, we're just going to take out their uranium enrichment facilities and essentially put an end to the need for a tit-for-tat back and forth, and undoubtedly saved many lives, both American, Israeli, and even Iranian. So this was a necessary action in order to ensure American interests were kept safe.
I'll be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. Going back to the purpose of this is to destroy that missile capability. Why does Iran want that ballistic missile capability? What they are trying to do and have been trying to do for a very long time is build a conventional weapons capability as a shield where they can hide behind. Meaning, there would come a point where they have so many conventional missiles, so many drones, and it can inflict so much damage that no one can do anything about their nuclear program. That is what they were trying to do, is put themselves in a place of immunity where the damage they could inflict on the region would be so high that no one can do anything about their nuclear program or their nuclear ambitions. They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have. They've been doing this for a very long time, and by the way, they've been doing it under sanction. You see the attacks they're conducting right now? They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly, they're attacking facilities that have nothing to do with war or with military, and that's a weakened Iran. That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now or a year and a half from now the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well. So that was the purpose for what this operation is all
right, now, I see people talking about Tulsi Gabbard in the chat, and I think I know what you're talking about. What I would like to make sure everyone is aware of is that at the time that these strikes began, Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, the rest of the cabinet secretaries were all present in the Situation Room. Tulsi Gabbard has made no statements suggesting that what's happening in Iran right now should not be happening. She did, however, put out a video in 2019 when she was planning to run for president in 2020, suggesting that we had to stop President Trump from going to war with Iran. We're going to watch that video, but I want everybody to remember that video is 7 years old. And now Tulsi Gabbard is the Director of National Intelligence. She has access to every single bit of intelligence that President Trump and the rest of the cabinet has access to. In fact, she has access to more than everybody else in the cabinet based upon her position. So Tulsi Gabbard has not come out against Trump. Tulsi Gabbard has not condemned the attack on Iran. And if this truly was a necessary action, then Tulsi Gabbard is aware of that. But this is the video she produced 7 years ago.
Here are the steps that Donald Trump has taken to create a war with Iran. First, he tore up the Iran nuclear agreement.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
Second, he has escalated crippling sanctions against Iran.
The sanctions kicking in at midnight Sunday target Iran's oil exports, banking, and shipping, even though UN inspectors say Iran is still complying with the nuclear deal.
The United States will...
Okay, so it's a campaign ad. It's a campaign ad. Now, Rebel Nader, I see you say Tulsi Gabbard testified that Iran was not a threat just recently. Intelligence changes on a day-to-day basis. Perhaps they felt that at that moment, Iran wasn't a threat. But as soon as the administration believed Iran was a significant enough threat that it would require a response or a preemptive action, they obviously took it. So President Trump had also said days before that we were trying to make a deal with Iran and that he was going to give them time. Of course, the administration is not going to come out and say, guess what? This is the day we're going to come and attack you because now we've just learned that there is an imminent danger and the United States has to take action for it. again, Tulsi Gabbard has not come out against the president. She was present in the Situation Room. She was part of this. So whatever Tulsi Gabbard said on X Day, things changed by the time this decision was actually made. Now, continuing, CENTCOM has, as I reported a few moments ago, discovered at least 2 more bodies in the wreckage of a facility that was hit by Iranian, I believe, ballistic missiles. So this brings the total number of U.S. troops tragically killed since the start of this on Friday to 6. So we've got several who were seriously wounded, I believe 5 that were seriously wounded, and this all came after the attack, which included the killing of Ayatollah Khamenei. There were other minor injuries from shrapnel, concussions, and most of those people have already returned to active duty. President Trump paid homage to the fallen earlier today. And Tulsi Gabbard actually shared that clip of President Trump speaking all of their names and thanking their families for the sacrifice these men and women made. So the 2 that were just found before we went live had been buried somewhere within the rubble. And this is the tweet from CENTCOM in Tampa. As of 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 U.S. service members have been killed in action. U.S. forces recently recovered the remains of 2 previously unaccounted for service members from a facility that was struck during Iran's initial attacks in the region. Major combat operations continue. The identities of the fallen are being withheld until 24 hours after the next of kin notifications. Now, I believe that the first 4 have been publicly shared. And right here is the clip that the ODNI shared from Rapid Response 47.
But now for the reason that we're gathered this morning to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, 1 living and 2 no longer with us. So together we recognize the exceptional valor of Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds, and maybe I could ask your families to stand because they're beautiful families. I got to meet them, and please.
Each of those who have lost their lives are posthumously being awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor.
So Staff Sergeant Michael Ollis and Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, as they receive our nation's highest military award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. But now,
all right, now another important point I just want to continue to drive home. The situation with Iran was only possible because of the installation of the radical Islamic government that took place 47 years ago as a result of the destabilization efforts in the region by the United States government under the Central Intelligence Agency, MI6, under the British, the Mossad, under the IDF. This is not something that just began and President Trump came to very lightly. This has been a problem nearly 50 years in the making. And the result of the overwhelming efforts of Western deep state factions seeking to ensure that the Middle East would never turn into anything resembling a Western republic or democracy. Now, we also have Secretary of NATO, Mark Rutte, here, speaking about the support for these actions. Every NATO nation, all of the European nations, everybody is behind President Trump because ultimately, at the end of the day, this will lead to a much calmer situation in the Middle East and ensure that economic prosperity will reign and there will no longer be a government that can pose a threat such as what the Iranian government has all these years.
First of all, say that my thoughts are with the service members, the U.S. service members who made the ultimate sacrifice days. And let me also say that the commander-in-chief, the leader of the free world, President Donald J. Trump, I really commend what is happening here. Taking out Khamenei, taking out the nuclear capability in Iran, but also taking out the ballistic missile program in Iran. This is crucial. And what I see in Europe, I spoke with all the key European leaders over the weekend, is widespread support for what the president is doing, and also making sure that when it comes to logistics, access, defending key US interests in Europe and in the region, the Europeans are really stepping up.
Multiple nations have announced that they will be participating in this. There is a massive amount of air traffic that has gone over the region.
United Nations,
so President Trump, as I said, has essentially got the support of every single country on planet Earth. That includes the Middle Eastern countries. And he has brought NATO to its knees. He's also brought the UN to its knees, because for the very first time in history, First Lady Melania Trump is presiding over the United Nations Security Council in New York right now as we speak. This is Melania Trump opening the council and addressing all the member nations.
Right now, First Lady Melania Trump is presiding over the UN Security Council meeting. A First Lady or First Gentleman has never done this. The county has a rotating presidency. The U.S. holds it for a month in March. Let's watch some of this.
With the Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo, Under-Secretary General of Political and Peace-Building Affairs, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Item 2 of. I now give the floor to Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo.
Thank you, Madam President. On behalf
Madam President, First Lady Melania Trump, now presiding over the UN Security Council. Pretty incredible stuff there. All right, now, President Trump uploaded this video earlier today as an update on Operation Epic Fury, discussing the operations, exactly what he expects in Iran. Let's go ahead and watch this. This is a 6-minute clip, and we are going to watch the entire thing.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes.
Every other conflict that the United States has been in has dragged out. It's been slow, arduous, ponderous. It has allowed whomever our adversaries were to regroup, to strategize, to foresee actions that we might take. President Trump has carried this in such a way that it is swift, it is brutal, and it allows it to be brought to a conclusion much, much quicker, which ensures that the military-industrial complex does not just get a check to continue pumping out missiles and munitions and throwing bodies out onto the field. President Trump, don't forget, has reduced the budget of the Pentagon for the first time in history. I believe it was like 9.25%. It continues to go down by another 9.25% for the remainder of his presidency. He's also brought the military contractors to their knees. He is in the process of modernizing our capabilities, bringing about technologies that are smart and not just costing a whole ton of money so that it drains the American people. There have been significant changes that have been made to our military, to our readiness, to our buying process, and to the amount of money that we're spending.
Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. This wretched and vile man had the blood of hundreds and even thousands of Americans on his hands and was responsible for the slaughter of thousands of innocent people all across many countries. Last night, all over Iran, the voices of the Iranian people could be heard cheering and celebrating in the streets when his death was announced. The entire military...
Now, it's also worth mentioning, of course, Iranian state television didn't play any of that. They only played footage of people mourning his death. When it was announced on Iranian state TV, the presenter broke down in tears and started crying. There were definitely demonstrations of people who were chanting, death to the USA. They were upset about it. So it is a more nuanced issue than simply everybody is happy that this guy is dead. But I think a majority of people are happy that there is the opportunity for a new government to come in and perhaps that they can live a different type of life than they've been subjected to over the last 47 years.
Command is gone as well, and many of them want to surrender into saving their lives. They want immunity. They're calling by the thousands. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong objectives. They could have done something 2 weeks ago, but they just couldn't get there. Earlier today, CENTCOM shared the news that 3 U.S. military service members have been killed in action. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case. But America will avenge their deaths and deliver the most punishing blow to the terrorists who have waged war against basically civilization. They have waged war against civilization itself. Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now again the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons that would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. Not going to let it happen. We're not happening to us, and we're not going to let it happen to others. The United States has the strongest military the world has ever seen. I rebuilt our military in my first term. There's never been a military like we possess. And frankly, there's nobody even close, but we are now using that military for good. We want to have it for good purpose. We're undertaking this massive operation not merely to ensure security for our own time and place, but for our children and their children, just as our ancestors have done for us many, many years ago. This is the duty and the burden of a free people. These actions are right and they are necessary to ensure that Americans will never have to face a radical, bloodthirsty terrorist regime armed with nuclear weapons and lots of threats. For almost 50 years, these wicked extremists have been attacking the United States while chanting the slogan, "Death to America" or "Death to Israel" or both. They are the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. We are the world's greatest and most powerful nation, so we can do something about what they do. These intolerable threats will not continue any longer. I once again urge the Revolutionary Guard, the Iranian military, police, to lay down your arms and receive full immunity or face certain death. It will be certain death. Won't be pretty. I call upon all Iranian patriots who yearn for freedom to seize this moment, to be brave, be bold, be heroic, and take back your country. America is with you. I made a promise to you, and I fulfilled that promise. The rest will be up to you, but we'll be there to help. Thank you. God bless you to our incredible warriors, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
God bless. G. Fontes says Congress overruled President Nixon's veto of the War Powers Resolution of 1973 with more than 2/3 of the House and 75 votes in the Senate. They wanted to give presidents such power. Absolutely. That is correct. And the only reason that they're balking at it right now is because many CIA agents and assets are present in Congress right now. And Obama was a CIA candidate. I think everybody understands that. There's a reason that he gave $12 billion to Iran. It was to ensure that the radical Islamist government of the Islamic Republic of Iran would be able to stay in power and would be able to continue to fund terrorist efforts around the world as a destabilizing force. It gave a reason for the military-industrial complex to continue making as much money as possible, and for the citizens of every nation to have this looming threat over their heads of a government that was rogue, that was potentially about to produce nuclear weapons. And that was the only thing that was left. You know, in general, you know, the fervor over Islam around the world has kind of died down. There is no communism, so to speak. China may be a communist nation in theory, but in practice, they definitely want to engage in the sort of economic cooperation that President Trump is trying to ensure survives, even if they are a little dishonest. And the fall of the Soviet Union led to the destruction of the Iron Curtain. So an Islamist government was basically the only thing left that they had as a boogeyman. They tried to do it with the threat of pandemics. They tried to do it with the threat of a number of different things, but this was the last one that was really successful. Remember, President Trump made the salvo to try to normalize relations with North Korea. North Korea had also essentially been a CIA proxy for destabilization that was in Asia. But of course, President Trump, as he said, in order to continue our way of life and ensure peace and prosperity for future generations of every nation, we got to make sure that certain things are not in play. Next, the new Iranian Ayatollah is a man by the name of Ayatollah Arafi. He was appointed, I believe, as the interim Ayatollah after Khomeini's death. He's basically just the same. And there are a number of other people who have taken up positions. These are people that I think are of less consequence. Certainly, President Trump was asked who was going to take over, and he said, well, it's not going to be anybody we've thought about yet, because everybody that we had thought about was killed in the initial attacks. Real quickly, before we talk about our next story, I have a very brief message from our friends over on Rumble. My friends, if you guys still haven't yet tried 1775 coffee, you've got an opportunity to do so. They've got some of those starter kits available. You're going to get their smooth medium roast, their bold dark roast, and their vitality mushroom coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus without the crash. It's all made from the highest quality beans available, single origin, small batch, toxin and mold free. Not all coffees can say that. You're also going to get some of their freebies, a gold spoon clip, a very strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler as well. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for $99. This is for everybody watching and seeing 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if you should try it. It is very, very good. I recommend it. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab one of the starter kits before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. You can use that QR code that you see on screen as well, or the link that you're going to find down below. Thank you very much once again to Rumble for supporting the program. All right, so very consequentially, after the initial attacks, the United States government was apparently able to hack into Iranian network television. And the initial report that President Trump gave that I saw around 2:30 or 3 a.m. on Friday was played for Iranians. And you can see here in a clip, it will be President Trump speaking to Iran, and it looks to have been recorded by a member of the Iranian public. Just waiting for this commercial to get over. Okay, and it's essentially President Trump telling the Iranian people that we back their efforts to rise up and take control.
Is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
And you can see there that there is a translation. I don't know if that's in Arabic or that's in Farsi. I believe in Iran they speak Farsi and maybe a couple of other individual dialects. There have been a lot of videos of people celebrating, but I haven't seen videos of people celebrating coming out of Iran. Everything is obviously very locked down. But all of the celebrations have been here in the United States, in the in European nations. This one was interesting. This was Iranians celebrating with Israelis on the streets of London. Now, of course, the Iranians who are dissidents who were forced to leave the country after the fall of the Shah, they've got a common interest with the Israelis, who they both want to get rid of this government, the Islamic government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and not so strange that they would necessarily be celebrating together. But as a result of these attacks, we've also seen some other things take place around the globe. There was an attack on the U.S. consulate in Pakistan. Nearly 24 Pakistani militants were killed because they stormed the U.S. consulate in Karachi. They were able to get through the gate, and the U.S. security team there at the consulate dispatch them with brutal efficiency. This was not going to end up like another Benghazi. And essentially, as soon as the bullets started flying, the Pakistanis realized that they were quite literally outgunned. There was a panic as these people stampeded out. We are going to go ahead and watch the video. Looks like I should warn people about what you're going to see, because there will be some blood. However, I feel for the purposes of news and information, this is something to be seen. Why is it that people in third world nations, like, they're always like firing towards each other or over each other's heads, or like spinning around with AK-47s at weddings and end up accidentally shooting people? I don't know, dude. I mean, maybe it's a consequence of the intermarriage. But this tells you everything you need to know about what took place in Benghazi. Those guys basically had their hands tied, and here at the Karachi U.S. consulate, there was no attempt to try to hamstring these guys or stop them from protecting U.S. interests. Yeah, like Chicago, exactly. So yeah, this was a dumb move on behalf of these Pakistanis.
Okay, let's go down. Let's go down. Let's go down. Let's go down.
They were dispatched fairly quickly, and everybody got out of there. Very unfortunate that it even happened, but thank God this is the only thing that I've seen as a result of what's taking place in Iran. Now, President Trump earlier today, during his speech at the White House to pay homage to those who passed at that target that was hit by Iranian missiles, President Trump gave an update in a larger sense on what's taking place and how he feels the operation is going so far. Essentially, he said that ultimately we are ahead of schedule, and we're very happy with the trends, with everything that's taken place so far. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing because of all of the commercials in the background. Let me go ahead and turn this up, and we can hear President Trump's assessment of the situation so far.
Everybody for being here, and please feel free to sit. So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible
Misfit, I thought that they were giving the Medals of Honor to the people that they had identified. Are you saying these are different Medal of Honor recipients? Because I had read that they were awarding the Medal of Honor to every U.S. serviceman that was identified as having been killed in that first strike by Iran. If I got the story mixed up, please let me know. But that was my understanding of it.
Terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because
that is not the case. Okay, well, I apologize for getting it wrong. Sorry for that.
They were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up, but they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped, but everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful, by far, military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always. And we have, right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said.
Okay. I need to say thank you to Make Sense to Me, too. A little bit behind. Sorry. Should the Iran death toll to Americans also include the nightclub shooting? It very well may. And we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. All right. So, yeah, I really apologize, guys. I guess I got my wires crossed on exactly what the president was talking about today at this speech. So, Medal of Honor recipients from long ago. I'll have to, I guess, fact check myself on the announcement that the Medal of Honor would be given to the U.S. servicemen that perished in the attack from Iran. And this actually is the same clip that we just showed, so I don't need to show it. There was also a press conference with Pete Hegseth and General Dan Raisin Kane. Both of them giving an update from the Pentagon and the military's perspective on how this operation has gone. Let's hear first from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons. We're hitting them surgically, overwhelmingly, and unapologetically. With every passing day, our capabilities get stronger and Iran's get weaker. We set the terms of this war, from start to finish. Our ambitions are not utopian. They are realistic, scoped to our interests and the defense of our people and our allies. Speaking of people, we hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate.
You must choose, but you must choose wisely.
In either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes.
All right. So with that, I feel like Pete Hegseth said exactly what I said. So He also had an interaction with a reporter from NBC. This is what President Trump had mentioned when they were talking about the timeline. Of course, they want to pin the administration down on an exact timeline. Of course, that's not going to be possible. As stated, we want to do this as quickly as we can, but we're not going to stop before the job has been accomplished.
President Trump put a 4-week timeline on it. Are you saying that's wrong?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned during the briefing, General Kaine, that there would be additional troops sent to the region. Could you say how many troops currently are involved in this operation and how many additional troops are planned to go in this next phase?
I don't want to talk specifics because that would tip the enemy off. We have more tactical aviation flowing into theater just based on the time it took to get it out there. I think we're just about where we want to be in terms of total combat capacity and total combat power for Admiral Cooper. One of the things, though, that a commander, he'll consistently assess the trajectory of the campaign. Is he on or off trajectory? And then make an ask of the joint force, which will then develop options for consideration by the Secretary and the President to either increase or in some cases decrease the amount of combat capability that we have over there.
I heard the question about 4 weeks. It's the typical NBC sort of gotcha type question. President Trump has all the latitude in the world to talk about how long it may or may not take. 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. It could move up. It could move back. We're going to execute at his command the objectives we've set out to achieve. And what he has shown an ability to do that other presidents can't quite seem to have the aperture to do, well, I mean, Joe Biden didn't even know what he was doing, is to look for opportunities and off-ramps and escalations for the United States that creates new opportunities to execute what we need on our own timeline. So you can play games about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. He has all the latitude, and I'm glad he does, because there's no better communicator than our president expressing those things.
To the Daily Mail.
I've been in meetings with the president for the last 2.5 days. We know exactly where his headspace is, and he will communicate as he should exactly what he would like, and we will follow those orders. And I think everything he said on that is right down the middle.
All right. So, yeah, eat it, slut. All right. Now, let's hear from General Raisin Cain. Again, just another assessment, this time, obviously, from a military perspective. Let's go ahead and hear from General Cain.
At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The president directed an Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck. Close quote.
Now, it's also worth mentioning that several days before this kicked off, Raisin Cain had also put something out there suggesting that not a good idea to go to war with Iran. But also, as any good soldier will tell you, you follow orders. And depending upon the changing landscape of intelligence, certainly he is on board with exactly what's happening, in my opinion, the same way as Tulsi Gabbard.
In the region, every element of the joint force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons, and 2 carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operations centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation...
And that's another important point right there. To maintain the element of surprise would be essential if they were seeking to take out as many people as they could all at once. There's also a bit of brinksmanship, I think, that's going on here. Of course, you're going to have different voices from within the administration. And if the enemy believes that there is no chance that we're going to go ahead and attack them, that's also going to give them a bit of a lowered guard level, which I think is exactly what happened when all of these people got together in the exact same building at the exact same time, giving the opportunity for the decapitation strike.
was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave.
All right. Now, I want to show you what that looked like. Take a look at this. A guy on X was able to put together all open source intel and radar tracking, plane tracking, ship tracking to show exactly what it looked like when this simultaneous attack took place and what this would have required. Look at this. This is pretty awesome.
Every ship, every satellite, every plane, every airspace, every air force, every electronic attack, the jamming of their satellites, the jamming of their radar, cut off of their internet.
Pretty intense for this all to go the way that it did. Now, another really interesting aspect of this is that the United States during this attack used what was essentially a copy of an Iranian drone. It's basically a kamikaze drone, which has certain capabilities that the Iranian drones didn't have. Pete Hegseth had actually shown one of these several months ago. It was captured, it didn't go off, and it allowed for the United States to reverse engineer it through a contract with a military contractor, a rather small military contractor. If you think the missiles that we have, they cost tens of millions of dollars. But one of these drones costs $35,000. Now, these drones have the ability to create a separate mesh network which operates independently, and every single one of these drones is connected to the other one, and the information that is gathered is then relayed to every other drone, and it allows them to create this like kamikaze swarm, and they're called the Lucas. And it was one of the most successful drone attacks that we've had in modern history. And it was all based upon the Iranian Shahed drone, which was, I guess it was developed by Russia, and then it was cloned by Iran. And President Trump had demanded last year that military contractors provide the United States with much cheaper and lethal abilities, such as this Shahed drone. So this Lucas drone was developed, and this allowed for a very different style of attack. So they cost, as I said, about $35,000 to $40,000 each. They are equipped with Starlink, and it's not just regular Starlink. It's like the Starlink Plus that the military is able to use. They fly at 120 miles an hour, and they flew in. They used reverse-engineered Iranian technology, and then they were able to successfully launch with the help of CENTCOM. So pretty incredible stuff that we pulled off here. Now, a lot of people, and me, myself included, when this all started kicking off, I said, what do I know? How do I know what's actually happening there? Well, CENTCOM has released a bunch of footage of attacks that have taken place on Iranian targets, B-1 bombers flying in, taking off and attacking a variety of different areas inside, including hangars full of some of these Shahed drones. Some of them look like maybe they were just freebies, like you've got a jet fighter that's just parked in the middle of an empty field, and we took it out. This is a video of the attack on a depository for some of these Shahed drones. Okay. Right here, this is that freebie that I was talking about. Boom, take it out. Nothing else is really around. Here are some of those drone targets. Each one of those is equipped with a kamikaze bomb. So you hit that, it takes them all out. Another kind of looking like a freebie right there. Let's see. It was also mentioned by President Trump that we had completely wiped out the Iranian Navy. They've got nothing left. BDR 1776 says, I just started from the beginning, so who is going to get arrested for anything with elections? I can't tell you exactly who, but as Andrew was saying in that segment we did at the beginning, this was a feature of the No Ink program on the election pads, which are in use in Bexar County. And in order for those entries to have been created, it would have had to have been initiated by somebody working the election in Bexar County. As Andrew also said in that segment, there are people much, much higher than him who are aware of this, are interested in it, don't want to give up the ghost. So I'm thinking that people high up, including Attorney General Ken Paxton in the state of Texas, I would also imagine that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence at the federal level would be aware of this. I am expecting an executive order on election security to come very, very soon. Who knows? Maybe we'll even hear something else about it in regards to the attacks that we're seeing in Iran. All right, so CENTCOM announced that within 48 hours, we had completely eliminated the Iranian Navy. They had 11 ships that were operating in the Gulf of Oman. All of them are now currently sitting on the bottom of that body of water. They said 2 days ago, the Iranian regime had 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman. Today, they have 0. The Iranian regime has harassed and attacked international shipping in the Gulf of Oman for decades. Those days are over. Freedom of maritime navigation has underpinned American and global economic prosperity for more than 80 years, and U.S. forces will continue to defend it. So I believe this video is of those ships being hit, or at least one of them being hit. I don't know anything about the size or the classification of the Iranian Navy ships. But if you don't know anything about the region, the Gulf of Oman feeds directly into the Straits of Hormuz. This is one of the most critical oil choke points in the world. Roughly 20% of global seaborne oil passes daily through the Straits of Hormuz, which makes any threat from Iranian naval vessels a direct risk to the economic independence and also the energy capabilities of any nation that is depending on that 20% of global capacity. The tankers and tanker owners and trading houses that were using the Straits of Hormuz, shipping oil, shipping various types of fuel, liquid natural gas, they were all essentially under the threat of the Iranian Navy at any point. Everybody that goes through there has to carry a special type of insurance in order to traverse those waters. And those insurance companies suspended the insurance plans of any of those tankers that were going through there at the start of this conflict, which meant that if anybody had been taken out by the Iranian Navy, they would have lost their investment totally, and nobody would have been paid back. The insurance companies are anticipating that that would happen. But with the removal of Iran's Navy and also their naval facilities on land, I don't think that that's going to be a problem. We've also had reports that over 210 tankers and ships that were traveling through the Straits of Hormuz, anchored outside of the Straits of Hormuz, are experiencing some type of transponder interference. Undoubtedly, that may be coming from the Iranian Navy, the Iranian Islamic Republic. I would have thought perhaps when I first heard about this that it could have potentially been some type of satellite blocking that was coming from American sources or other coalition forces in order to stymie the Iranian Navy. But now that it doesn't exist anymore, I can only imagine that it is some type of response from the Iranian government. You can see here there is just a ton of traffic that goes through there. This was all on the 27th of February. This is the 28th of February after the attacks started. These signals allow these vessels to track their position through the waters, and it also allows them to be directed by people who are actually making sure that this traffic goes through there and there aren't any disruptions. There are a couple of choke points here, and if everybody gets hung up in one area, then obviously the oil is not going to continue flowing. Tehran said that they had closed navigation of these waters as of Saturday. Our ships will stay put for several days. Somebody from one of these oil companies, one of these transportation companies had said, the people and vessels that were moving through here depend on these transmissions to make sure that nothing is going to delay the traffic or end up in a ship being grounded or people running into each other. There was a VHF transmission from the Revolutionary Guard on Saturday. Coming from Iran, they said no ship is allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz. British Navy said Iran's orders were not legally binding and advised vessels to transit with caution. Vessel traffic through the Straits of Hormuz has not completely stopped, but these disruptions are beginning to build rapidly, which, of course, is leading people to believe that there may be a disruption in international oil supply. We will continue to follow this and ensure that everything doesn't get hung up. Emerald Dragon says, just found this out. There are no Walmarts in Iran, only Targets. That's hilarious. I need to say thank you to Filter Dog over on Pilled, who says in HRC's testimony, she was asked about the insurance policy on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And I'm glad that you brought Hillary Clinton back up, because I was able to grab a couple of clips from Hillary Clinton's testimony as we were sitting here. Hillary Clinton was asked about that insurance policy, and she was also asked about Frazzle Drip. Let's go ahead and check that. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I need to unmute. Sorry, guys. All right. Again, this is Lauren Boebert for the win.
Are you aware of any files that were on Anthony Weiner's laptop in a folder that was titled insurance, life insurance, with a zip file titled Frazzle?
This is way outside the scope. Ruling. This is way
within the
scope.
Is
this within the scope, Mr. Chairman?
If the chairman rules that it's not within the scope,
Mr. Chairman, based on what you said in the public hearing, is this within the scope?
We can go off the record for a moment.
Mr. Chairman, is this within the scope?
We'll go off the record and can talk.
Hillary Clinton did not answer any questions about Anthony Weiner's insurance policy or Frazzle Drip. I did not know that Frazzle Drip was supposedly in the Anthony Weiner insurance policy. That's the first time I've heard that. That's very interesting. Okay, and then she also lost her mind when Nancy Mace asked her about Howard Lutnick facilitating Jeffrey Epstein coming to a private, it was labeled intimate, Hillary Clinton fundraiser for her 2016 presidential campaign.
I'm going to answer your question.
Now you're going to
This was what I spent my time doing.
I'm a survivor trying to look out for other survivors, trying to
and I was taking care of the people who lost 3,000 lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
indignant today.
You asked me.
Oh, she invokes the World Trade Center and 9/11. Oh, what a hag.
Met with Epstein survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did not.
Howard Lutnick was
If
used
you
to
have an
get
email
money,
with me asking Jeffrey Epstein for money.
I have an email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeffrey Epstein and his people to raise money for
I don't know about
for an event, an intimate event for you at his offices at Cantor Fitzgerald. You're going to sit here today and obfuscate and say to this committee, you didn't try to get money from Jeffrey Epstein when there was an intimate event in an email that Howard Lutnick emailed to Epstein's people and Epstein to get him to come to your intimate event at Cantor Fitzgerald, a very small event. And so I'm not going to put it. You want to yell at me, that's fine, but I'll yell right back.
Well,
okay? I am looking out for survivors. I'm doing the job that you would not do and refuse to do as Secretary of State. Thank you, and I yield back to
No,
Congresswoman.
I'm going to finish answering the question, which I have a right to do. I am very sympathetic to your personal situation. I have read about it. I have seen you testify or speak on the floor about it. And I very much sympathize with not only what you went through, but appreciate your effort to stand up for survivors. I was a senator representing the people who were murdered on 9/11. Nobody lost more people.
She was also a defense attorney for a man accused of raping I think it was a 10-year-old girl. And Hillary Clinton wrote a letter to the prosecutor and accused the little girl of having fantasies about being raped by an adult pedophile. So obviously this is a touchy subject for her. But anytime you bring up the names of the dead from 9/11, of course, you are impenetrable to criticism. Hillary Clinton knows that. Of course she's going to bring it up.
Than Howard Lutnick. You can say whatever you want. You can call him and have him appear before the committee. But I knew him as the man who lost the employees that he knew intimately, including his brother.
All right. Now, Hillary Clinton was also asked if she had any connections to people who were likely engaging in child trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein. Names that you would remember, like the Rothschilds, or Bill Gates, or Huma Abedin, or Jean-Luc Brunel. Let's take a listen.
Have you ever communicated with any of the following people relating to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? Richard Kahn.
No.
Darren N. Dyke.
No.
Sarah Kellen.
No.
Doug Band.
Not that I recall.
Wait, Doug Band? He was Bill Clinton's Guy Friday. Okay, Hillary Clinton definitely knows who Doug Band is, and she definitely would have had dealings with Doug Band.
Lawrence Summers.
No.
Ooh, that's interesting because Bill Clinton admitted in his testimony that Larry Summers introduced him to Jeffrey Epstein.
Huma Abedin.
Have I ever talked to her about this in preparation for this hearing? I have.
Outside of that?
Not that I recall.
Noam Chomsky.
No.
Leslie Groff.
No.
Nadia Marcinkova.
No.
Jean-Luc Brunel.
No. I don't know most of these people. Should I tell you that I know who they are, or just tell you I never talked to them?
Just so you never talked to them, it's fine. Alan Dershowitz.
No.
Kathy Rumler.
No.
Bill Richardson.
No.
George Mitchell.
No.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew.
No.
Peter Mandelson.
No.
Reid Hoffman.
No.
Karina Shuliak.
No.
Bill Gates.
No.
Ehud Barak.
No.
Woody Allen.
No.
Sandy Berger.
No.
Jess Staley.
No.
Paul Morris,
No.
Leon Black,
No.
Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem,
No.
Leslie Wexner,
No.
Jack Kessler,
No.
Mark Middleton,
No.
Harvey Weinstein,
No.
Ellie de Rothschild,
No.
Ariane de Rothschild,
No.
Lynn Forrester de Rothschild,
No.
any other members of the de Rothschild family?
No.
No, Hillary. Hillary. All right. Now, it was mentioned earlier, unfortunately, a couple of shootings that took place over the weekend. First, a concert venue in Cincinnati was a target. We don't know who's responsible for this. Both the FBI and the Cincinnati police are currently, as far as I know, up until the start of this show, were seeking the party that was responsible. There was a call for police around 1 a.m. for a shooting inside the Riverfront Live venue, which is along Kellogg Avenue. Multiple shots were fired inside the establishment. 9 people were injured with gunshot wounds. A motive and a suspect still remains unclear. There is CCTV footage from outside the venue. You can hear bullets going off. In another video, you've got attendees seen running from the venue. A local business owner said, "All I seen was a dozen people running, and friends are calling me asking if everything's okay, and that's when I found out there was a shooting. I have plenty of CCTV footage, and I'm working with the police and the FBI. I think we have some of that footage right here from a local news report. Let me go ahead and get past the pre-roll ads. Okay.
Ring out at a concert venue in the East End. Police confirming at least 9 people were shot at Riverfront Live on Kellogg Avenue. WLWT News 5's Richard Childs joins us live at the scene with the breaking details. And Richard, we've just gotten new video from a business owner showing people running for cover as the shooting played out.
Now, the crime scene tape is down. The police have cleared this scene, but the investigation remains ongoing. Now, the video that we have will be part of the police investigation. Closed circuit camera video from area businesses as well as inside of this venue gives some insight into the horrific moments when the gunfire rang out.
So this case remains ongoing. However, there was another shooting that took place in Austin, and the perpetrator of this has been identified. This is a Senegalese immigrant who showed up and injured 14 people and killed 2 more. You can see he's walking carrying an AR-15. He initially pulled up to the venue and began shooting from his truck with a handgun. He has a shirt on that says "Property of Allah." He has since been shot dead by police. This occurred somewhere around 2 a.m. This weekend. I believe this was on Saturday night as well. This was at Buford's Bar on West 6th Street near the University of Texas, Austin. The FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force was on scene and investigating. The shooter is a 53-year-old by the name of Indiaga Diagni. He was naturalized under the Barack Hussein Obama administration. He was living in Pflugerville, Texas. He had a lengthy criminal record, and he never should have been given citizenship. There was a Quran that was found in his car, and he was wearing the hoodie that I mentioned, Property of Allah. This came just a day after the killing of the Iranian officials in Iran over the weekend. Acting FBI Special Agent in charge of the San Antonio field office, Alex Duran, told reporters that they had found indicators on the subject and in his vehicle that the nexus for the attack was, in fact, terrorism. Don't know if it was in response to what happened in Iran, if he was planning to do it already, but certainly the timing and proximity seems to be a little bit coincidental. Austin Police Chief Lisa Davis also confirmed that a bomb squad was called in to investigate the vehicle of the suspect, but no bomb was found. Davis also told reporters that the suspect never entered the bar. He drove by, was firing out the window with a pistol, and once he exited the vehicle after parking on Wood Street, he exited with a rifle at that point. There is footage of people dead, and I'm not going to show that. It's pretty disturbing. It was suggested that this man came into the United States in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was living in New York City from 2000 to 2008. Also had lived in Texas previously. He had a history of arrests. He was arrested in 2001 for illegal vending, but his other 3 arrests are sealed, which to me seems pretty fishy. Either the judge or judges that oversaw these 3 sealed cases sealed it because they didn't want people knowing that a naturalized American immigrant citizen had been involved in crimes, or this guy was being handled and his record was covered up so that he would draw less attention and he would be able to move about America freely until such time that it would become necessary to activate him and have something like this to occur. So he entered the U.S. on March 13th of 2000. He had a B-2 tourist visa. In June of 2006, he became a lawful permanent resident and he married a U.S. citizen. He naturalized and became a citizen on April 5th of 2013 during the Obama administration. And in 2002, he was arrested in Texas for a vehicle collision that caused damage. But we don't have any indication what those 3 sealed cases are. This whole thing seems totally fishy to me. And hopefully they will unseal his arrest record and we can see exactly what he was up to. But it does appear to be terrorism related. Now, the first victim of the Austin mass shooting has been identified. It's a young man named Ryder Harrington. This occurred early Sunday morning, which was late Saturday night when the guy showed up and started shooting. 3 of the 14 victims were transported to local hospitals in critical condition. This man is being attributed to having some I guess, loyalty to the Ayatollah or certainly being influenced by what happened in Iran. The Property of Allah sweatshirt says, quite a bit. It looks like he was also wearing an Iranian T-shirt underneath his Property of Allah sweatshirt. So Ryder Harrington was a student at Texas Tech University. There is a GoFundMe for his family. It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of our brother, Ryder Harrington, a member of the fall 2024 pledge class. Ryder was a beloved son, brother, and friend whose kindness and presence touched countless lives. From the moment he joined our brotherhood, he brought a light that was impossible to ignore. Ryder had a rare ability to truly enjoy life, to make people laugh, to make moments feel bigger, and to make ordinary days unforgettable. If anyone embodied what it meant to live fully and be loved deeply, it was Ryder. All donations will be directed to the Harrington family to help cover funeral and memorial costs. And as I always like to do, I just want to see how that fundraiser is going. Wow, $89,757 has been raised for his family. The goal is set at $160,000. And pretty awful stuff right there. No word on the additional people who have passed away. Emerald Dragon also said in regards to Hillary Clinton, she immediately touched her face. Intolerant Leftist said on Pilled, when algorithm was erased, did names and votes remain? And could this be why we're seeing a Democrat primary turnout eclipse Republican? Definitely may have something to do with that. But as Andrew was saying, it appears that the records that were created did not have unique names. It was the same name, different addresses on the same street. And because it's a secret ballot, it was just a ballot that was created. Now, again, we only have as much information as Andrew gave us. And as we get more details, of course, I will bring it back and report it to you guys. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Intolerant leftists, are we able to find out if or where the same algorithm is being run? In order to do that, Andrew would have to have access to specific regions' information, and somebody would have to catch it. I meant to ask Andrew, why was it that this particular thing was caught? But it sounds like the local Republican Party, the GOP, was simply looking to see if there were going to be any problems. But considering it was a feature of the No Ink software, I think it's reasonable to assume that anywhere that the No Ink software is being used, there is the potential for a similar type of fraudulent action to take place. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. Moon Baby said, I'm late. What up, Famalam? Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Good Dog, thank you for the can. Sean Joe, thank you for 3 more cookies. I appreciate it. All right. Now, in response to this shooting that took place in Austin, Representative Brandon Gill has called for a ban on immigration from Islamic nations, pretty obviously because of the harm overall that it's brought to our country over the decades. And, of course, in the interest of ensuring something like this is not able to take place in the future. Let me see if we've got a statement from Brandon. I believe that he posted something on social media. Yes. All right. So he shared a tweet talking about the shooting that took place. And he said, you can thank decades of contemptible, elitist policymakers who cheered mass immigration in the name of diversity, multiculturalism, cheap labor, and political correctness. And now their children and grandchildren will live in a country that's unrecognizable and far worse off. How does immigration from Senegal or anywhere in the Islamic world benefit Americans? It doesn't. It brings terrorism and social dysfunction into our own communities while fundamentally altering America's cultural fabric. Islamic terrorism is in America solely because of immigration. It was a policy choice to import it. No more immigration from the Islamic world. Wake up. I have absolutely no problem with that policy, and I think a lot of people would support it as well. All right, now, getting back to perhaps one of the reasons that this skirmish with Iran is taking place. Catherine Herridge shared this over the weekend. These are declassified documents from the Department of Navy, which seem to indicate that Iran's ballistic missile force, although it was not nuclear, was potentially tainted through experiments with uranium or other nuclear isotopes to create dirty warheads that have already been used against U.S. forces. And this is in regards to specifically an attack that took place in January of 2020. Catherine Herridge obtained these memos as part of a recent investigation into the fallout of Iran's 2020 ballistic missile strike on U.S. forces at the Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. 3 independent environmental experts who reviewed the military records told us actinium-228, bismuth-214, and cesium-137 were present in the debris and seemed out of place with a conventional warhead. So you can see here in the report, and they show exposure to hazardous and toxic materials. They list those things. They also have things like chromium, mercury, pyrene, phenol, strontium, silver, nickel, et cetera, et cetera. Some of those pretty benign. But the ones that she specifically called attention to are radioactive and should not have been present in a traditional warhead that was part of a ballistic missile. All right. Now, finally, before we go, President Trump was recorded as saying that he got Khamenei before Khamenei could get him. Let's take a listen. You know what? I got to get past this commercial once more. Okay, turning up the volume.
I just spoke to President Trump for several minutes about Iran. I asked him about who is going to take over now that the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, is gone. And his answer was interesting. He said the attack was so successful it knocked out most of the candidates. He told me it's not going to be anybody that we were thinking of because they are all dead. I talked to him about the fact that the Iranians had tried to kill him. There was a plot in 2024, an Iranian plot to try to kill Trump. And he said of the Ayatollah, I got him before he got me. They tried twice. Well, I got him first. As for how long the war will go on, the president told me he always thought it was going to be a 4 or 5 week deal. That's what he told me, a 4 or 5 week operation. He said it could be shorter, and he was prepared to go longer. And about the 3 Americans who were killed, the president said it's war and you have casualties in war. He marveled at the fact that with all the operations he has conducted as president in Venezuela, the one last summer in Iran, and this one, that the total casualty count, American casualties, is 3. That's a quick summary of a rather lengthy conversation.
It is pretty incredible that we've had so many successful operations take place, and the casualties on the American sides have been as few as they have been. Of course, now that death toll has risen to 6. All right, before I read the final thank yous, one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. Parents, grandparents, I want to talk to you about something pretty important for just a second here. America this year is hitting a major milestone. We're coming up on the 250th birthday of our nation. That's 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance that the world has ever seen. This is now the perfect time to help your kids understand why it is that this country matters. Not just the fireworks and the hot dogs and all the things that come along with it, but the story behind it all. And there is a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday you should get for them. It's honestly a great way to introduce kids to how America began, who those founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for are still relevant today. This guide sends kids back to the moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. They knew full well at that time they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into some boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why it is worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. And the best part, it is completely free. All you got to do with this special offer is pay the $2 for the shipping and postage. You can head to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, and the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is there for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. You can use that QR code on screen or head to freeusabirthday.com. Thank you very much to them, and thank you very much to Rumble. All right, so I think we got everything over on Pilled, and I think we got everything over on Rumble as well. All right, guys, so that will be it today. I will see you here tomorrow at 5 p.m. I will also, of course, be on Badlands at 10:30 for Baseless Conspiracies, so either join me there or join me back here tomorrow. Don't forget about the final sponsors of the program, my friends over at onenessdrops.com. Onenessdrops.com, that is the wrong screen, onenessdrops.com/redpill78, where you can get your chlorine dioxide water purification kits. You always need to have clean, healthy drinking water on hand, and this will allow you to do that. Of course, chlorine dioxide has a whole bunch of other benefits that you've probably heard of. I've talked about it on many different occasions, but they don't just have chlorine dioxide. They also have mullein extract for lung health, soursop extract for cellular regeneration, pure DMSO, which is also another incredible substance I use quite regularly. And they also have hydrochloric acid drops for stomach indigestion. And of course, you can get the 15% off when you use my code. But if you order one of their bundles, you'll get another discount on top of that, and then my discount on top of that. So definitely check that out. Also, don't forget about mypillow.com. Use code RP78 to save up to 80% off of Mike Lindell's amazing American-made products. The towels, the Giza Dream Sheets, the MyPillow, of course, the mattress toppers. They also have just regular mattresses, which are great. They have pretty much everything that you need for your bedroom, your bathroom, and now also for your kitchen. Also, you, of course, will be supporting Mike Lindell's efforts to become governor of Minnesota. I think that that is totally worthwhile. My friends over at rncstore.com/RP78, where you can save 10% off of their B17 products. They also just have bitter raw apricot seeds benefits, definitely look into the benefits of B17. This is something that many people have found has been a great comfort during certain times, and they have a whole bunch of great stuff there. All the links for all my sponsors are in the description of this video. Please check them out. When you support the sponsors, you directly support the program. Good luck. God bless. I will see you tomorrow.